You are listening to the Slow Living Podcast, and I'm your host, Stephanie O'Day. What if I told you that you could truly have the life of your dreams, the life you've always wanted, one filled with abundance, joy, and a sense of purpose? It's absolutely possible, and I see it each and every day with my coaching clients. It all starts with learning how to slow down. You deserve to live the life you've always dreamt about. Let's get started. So if you're a fan of the podcast, you're going to absolutely love the book. Slow Living, Cultivating a Life of Purpose in a Hustle-Driven World is now available wherever books are sold. Buy it for yourself, your children, your friends, and your neighbors. You can get all the juicy details at stephanieoday.com/slow living book. Trust me, this is hands down the best $20 you'll ever spend. Hi guys, real quick trigger warning for this week's episode. Amylee is back. You met her last week in episode 148. Today, we are talking about her survival in a pretty horrific bus crash. If you think this will be distressing for you to learn about, don't. Honor yourself, your body, and your intuition. That said, this is Amylee's story, and we are all here to listen and cheer her on. Hi there, Slow Down Society. Steph here, and we are on episode 149 of the Slow Living Podcast. And I am so happy because Amylee, the productive mama, has agreed to come back and record her own slow living story with me. So, as you remember, Amylee came on last episode 148, which was part of our slow parenting series. And we had talked about navigating those tween and teen years, and how really the best way to have great tweens and teens is to be a present parent in the toddler and preschool years and kind of lay the foundation. Because as Amylee pointed out, it's really difficult to course correct. Today, she is going to share a little bit of her own slow living story and how, while she continues to be the productive mama, she kind of had this big life event happen where she needed to rely on others to help take care of her. And as she had mentioned in the previous episode, thankfully, she had great kids who already knew how, sort of, to be potential future capable adults because she had laid the foundation already. So Amylee, thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing to spend more time with us and for sharing your wisdom and life advice.
Happily.
Okay. So in the last episode, and I had been following this closely because you and I are friends in real life. Talk to me. You mentioned a bus crash in the last episode. What happened there?
So I was a chaperone for my kids. And at this point, my two older kids were in the teen youth group, basically at my church. And we took a bus a few 5-ish hours north to Denver. And on the way back, something happened to the driver. We were on the highway and he ran off the road basically at full speed. And we ended up, I thought we were going to like flip over. Um, and we ended up kind of crashing into an embankment really fast. And all the other adults basically were thrown out of the bus. I had fallen asleep, which is something my family has teased me about over the years. Give me lunch and a warm afternoon in a car, and I fall asleep. So that's what happened. So by the time I woke up and realized what was going on, I was not at the front of the bus. So I was in the bus, but I was, as you can imagine, everybody was injured. And we had, to varying degrees, some of them pretty seriously. There were 2 deaths. And I had some leg injuries and some things that at the time were minor, but still I deal with now, which is vocal cord issues and things like that. So I was airlifted to a hospital. My kids were taken to another hospital.
Were you conscious when you
Yes,
were?
I never
Okay.
lost consciousness.
So as you were being airlifted, it's funny, I tell my family that I have no interest in ever going into a helicopter unless it's a life vac. So I hate that this has happened to you. Um, you were then separated from your children. Did you know if they were hurt or what was your
I
mind
think
frame
the
then?
reason I was able to stay calm is because I knew that they were basically okay. So
Okay.
right after, when we were all still on the bus, everybody's yelling for each other. So I could hear my kids, making sure, Mom, where are you? And I could hear the girl who, the kids whose parents weren't okay, who weren't on the bus. So they knew, I think, that I was basically okay. And I knew that they were okay. So, you know, people, bystanders, drive buyers stopped, came, got us, as many of us off the bus as they could. They couldn't get everybody off. The bus was very unstable, so they had to wait and get help. But I actually didn't realize that. I thought everybody got off the bus.
Okay.
And also, I got pretty bad vision. My glasses were thrown off during this too, so my vision was kind of limited. So I'm listening. So a lot of my story is what I can hear. So I can hear my kids. Um, at the time, I didn't realize that my voice was pretty damaged. So I think that they can hear me, but they keep yelling for me, and I'm like, I'm okay, but I don't realize it was also very loud. So I kind of had ringing in my ears. So I think I was able to stay calm basically, because I knew that they were okay. So I knew that they were being taken somewhere else. I also knew that I was probably the least injured adult,
Okay.
and that everybody else would be tended to before me. And I did not expect to be airlifted, but that's because I think the helicopters came later, the ambulances came first, and they took the other people right away.
Okay.
Um, yes, so we were separated. Uh, I mentioned in the last episode that, they had my phone, um, because they didn't have phones, and that we all have access to each other's phones. So my daughter was calling people and using my phone for that. And then I just kind of waited uh, at the other hospital. I went through the ER and scans and was in ICU and just kind of waited for my husband to drive up and get the girls. So he had to go get them and then come to me. And then we were together there for just like 2 more days. Um, and then decided to come back because my husband happens to work in trauma where we live. So he would know all the people at our local hospital to give me good care. Um, so then we drove back, which was a pretty rough drive, back to our city and back home. We just wanted to be home,
Yeah.
at that point.
How many years ago now has it been?
5 years.
5 years.
This is
So
five
this
years. So
was all pre-COVID.
yes, this was 2019. And I guess I had a 17 and a 15-year-old on the bus and then a 12-year-old
Okay.
who was at home that weekend.
Okay. Wow. So
Yeah.
as you're talking, you're calm and I am hearing the story again, but through your words. And so my eyes are welling with tears and I just want to hug you through the camera. I know you've spoken about this quite a bit. How long until you are able to sort of separate that this happened to you and your kids and you're able to talk about it without constantly reliving the trauma? um because you're stating facts in such a matter of fact way, and
I
it,
think that's the
it
key
sounds
for
like you've
me.
had tons of therapy and introspection.
Um, I think the key is that I am just speaking facts. What will upset me and what will get me emotional is thinking about the people who died
Yeah.
and their last moments, and then saying this is when I'll get more emotional,
Yeah.
and then my kids.
Yeah.
So I can state the facts and what happened to me, because I feel like I was at a good age. I don't know if that makes any sense. I
I
was
do know
still,
it. I do know what that means. And I think
yeah,
a lot of parents feel the same
I
way.
was
Sometimes
young
I'm like,
enough.
at least my kids will remember me now. And it sounds so morbid. But
No,
have
so
your
that's part of it, but it was also that I was young enough that physically the recovery, like, it's different to have something like that happen when you're 65 than, around 45. So, if I was older, this would have been a different story. Also that I just had the life experience and a little bit of wisdom that comes with age to put this in perspective because another adult on the bus with me is about my age and we're kind of similar. And then somebody else was a lot younger, was a young parent. Um, and I think struggled more with anger about it. And then the kids, I feel like I physically, oh my gosh, it's just amazing some of their physical recoveries. But then struggled way more, I think, emotionally and spiritually. Partly, I think, because I just didn't have that maturity and life perspective.
yeah.
So I get sad sometimes thinking about those impacts on them. But yeah, when I tell the story, I can be calm because I'm stating facts and I can kind of keep that distance. So, um, right after I really focused on making sure the kids were okay, like emotionally, as far as counseling. And they did have this group because they were a group and there were, about 10 kids. I don't remember exactly how many that went through this together. So call it trauma bond, but they at least had each other to talk to and who went through this similar thing together. And then I was just focused on, I had to have surgery and just physically uh, recovering.
Yeah.
And then I did have um, basically like a PTSD episode. When I went to the dentist of all things, I just, there wasn't a scheduled appointment. My husband had an appointment. I said, I think I've got something going on. Let me just go in and, um, without going into super detail, just being in that situation of, I don't know, it's vulnerability. It also had to do with, some of the procedure, like the nerve block, which is something that didn't work on me for my surgery. Just kind of ended up being sort of this crazy response, which I go, oh, now I know what people are talking about. It's like my logical brain was telling myself, this is not the same situation. This is totally different. You're fine. Um, but my heart was racing and I just felt like I was back experiencing some of the similar things and I couldn't stop it. Um, and then later, oh, I wish I should have somewhere I kept this article that was talking about how PTSD episodes and memories are not the same. Like they trigger different parts of the brain. So it's more like you're reliving it. It's not a memory. Also, when you see it in the movies, it's all visual, right? Because you're
Yeah.
watching a movie and that's not what it's like either. Anyway, so that was my cue
Yeah.
that it was time for me to start looking after my own, um, mental health when it came to this and dealing with it. So, I guess I feel like God couldn't have been any clearer. Like
Well, and
it's
it's interesting with faith and with spirituality and the fact that this happened on a in a church bus, the levels of survivor guilt and trying to wrap a reason and logic around something. I mean, biblical scholars have gone on and on and on and tried to figure out why do bad things happen to good people,
Mhm.
and there's no answer that satisfies me at all, except for sometimes things just happen and it sucks.
Yeah.
But I hate that for you and I hate that for your kids and I hate that for the families who have lost loved ones. It is absolutely horrific and not fair and not right and there's no way to reason that there's just no way.
Yeah. This was I mean the one, like I said, a lot of you look back, you do. At first you're just grateful. Just like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm alive. And you do see a lot of things, a lot of blessings and a lot of things that could have been much worse. Um and and so you go back and forth between, oh my gosh, we were so lucky, and oh my gosh, we were so unlucky. Why did that happen? And I feel like, again, I feel like the kids struggle with that more because they're younger and they just haven't experienced life and seen, unfortunately, we do get a little bit, what's the word? Hardened, I guess, or
Yeah.
desensitized, right, to some of the things that happen in the world, and it doesn't hurt our hearts as much, I think, as it does young people. So, um, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Emily. Okay. So you had your own slowing down in 2019, and then the entire world slowed down in 2020. So do you have any parallels between those two things, or do you have like a big divide in your brain of this was before and after?
Oh yeah, I think I do. For me, more so the bus crash than COVID. Though, in
Mm-hmm.
talking to so the kids called each other the bus buddies, and I have my bus buddies, which are the adults and their families, that went through this. Um, at the time, I'd have to ask them this now, but I remember one of them said, "Oh yeah, no, COVID's much worse because
Mm.
it's." And then they would think, my gosh, what if this happened during COVID and we couldn't have our families there? Like, for us, having our families present was so healing and so needed. Like, you go to the hospital room of my bus buddies and it's full of family, right? It's like that's their support. Um, so, but still, kind of my dividing line rather in my life is the bus crash. And then I said, okay, I need to start working on myself. And at that point, I'm probably already going to physical therapy. I started therapy. I had to go to uh, an SLP, like, to get voice uh, therapy. Was that all the therapies I was going to?
So
So I was kind
I
of,
often say that mental health and physical health in my mind are the same thing. Like you can't have one without the other, and it's like capital H health. Would you agree with that?
um, yeah, I mean, they are really, really tied together. I think it's hard if you have to work on one of those, to me, it's hard to divide like energies. Um, so it kind of became that was a little bit of my part-time job, right? That was part of slowing down, right? So when it comes to the slowing down part, first of all, yes, I think what I'm pretty good at is cultivating community around me. So when it came time, I had help when I needed help, right? So I was able to borrow, like, right away. I had wheelchairs and shower seat and things like that. Meals were no problem. Um, and people would go to the grocery store for me if I needed stuff, and take my kids around, because now we're down to one driver again in the house because I can't drive. My daughter had a foot injury. So, and my husband, um, he took some time off, but he had to get back to work. So driving. So all these little things you end up relying on your community for things like that. So I feel like important to have that. And also important to have invested in that community before and after, right? So you're also offering help. So that was part of slowing down. Also, that you go to physical therapy, voice therapy, all this stuff, and that also means you have homework. So you're supposed to be working on this stuff. Going to the appointments, like setting aside time for that, but then also doing that work, doing the exercises, doing, things like that. Um, so that was all part of slowing down. And then the whole world, like, hit the brakes, right? So then COVID came along. Um, And, meanwhile, my kids have to get back to school and work on just their life, so that looks like trying to be totally normal and also trying to acknowledge that there was a big deal, something happened.
Yeah.
So for COVID, I didn't mind shutting down at first because everybody was home. And my mother-in-law actually died in March of 2020. Um, so it actually provided an opportunity for all of us to be together without worrying about missing school and all that I mean, there were some things
Hmm.
that stunk, right? There was no prom, there was no graduation for my
Yeah.
graduate and things like that. But part of me was like, oh, we can all be here together and kind of relax into that. But all the therapies did stop pretty much, pretty much,
Yeah.
or had to be.
Did your daughter who this sounds so silly, but this is where my brain goes. Did she write about this for her college essay entrances?
No, she
She
refused.
didn't. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I wondered about that because every once in a while, and this is so morbid, but every once in
No,
a
no,
while, I will
no.
hear these conversations in my house like, so and so so lucky because now they have something to write about in their
Right.
college essay. I'm like,
The
really?
overcome
That's what you're
essay.
thinking about?
Yeah. The overcome essay. Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I went there too. I was like, you could write about this. This would leave an impression, right? But I think it was too soon,
Yeah.
um, for her to do that. Um, so yeah, she really wouldn't even consider it. So, no, I think that's a legit question as somebody in the middle of trying to get kids
Well, I know.
through
Isn't it
college.
funny how those college application years kind of take over everything?
Yes, they do. And it's a game and you got to figure out how to play it. So you're just in the middle of playing that game. I totally
Yeah.
understand where you are.
So it's interesting to me that your URL has always been the productive mama, yet you're one of the like crunchiest, calmest, homeschooly-ish type people that I know. So I know that you don't buy into like hustle culture when it comes down to productivity. But how do you kind of marry those two thoughts that you can be intentional and purposeful and calm and slow and then also be productive? Are they the same in your brain or is it a conflict?
Yeah, I feel like productive is oh, sorry, forgot I had a microphone on.
No, I think you're
Productive
great.
is accomplishing what you want to accomplish in a way that doesn't drive you crazy. So for me as a young parent, that might mean setting aside time to make my own laundry detergent, my own baby food and cloth diaper, right? Not necessarily hustle to make a bunch of money, but at that point in my life, maybe it was more about saving money, right? I needed
Mm,
that. That was a huge part of my life. So yeah, it's not about doing the most in the least amount of time. It's about uh, being efficient so that you can achieve whatever it is that you want. And in the past year or so, since I started working part-time, like I've always said, oh yeah, I consider myself pretty productive and efficient because I've always had ultimate flexibility in how I spend my time. I could, of course I had my kids stuff and I had things I had to work around. Um, but last year having to be at a place at a certain time every day really was a shift for me because I haven't done that in so long. So I still, I mean, I take that. I'm just built as a planner.
yeah.
So I take that sense of productivity with me to my job and to whatever I do. But it was a big shift. It was a reorientation um, of my life to suddenly be accountable every day and have to like dress up. I know it's not super dressed up, but for me it was dressed up because I wore like hiking pants and a t-shirt every day. But here I have to like dress up a little bit and put on some makeup and have my hair done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was
Well, so I think that's what's nice uh for me and you of being the age and stage of life we're in and having blogged for as long as we have is we don't perform necessarily for the internet. So I mean, some people might look at your bus crash story and think, oh my gosh, she should be doing TikTok reels every day and showing how great she is and how she bounced back and blah 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 blah. But not only is that not you, you're not going to capitalize off of pain and someone else's like really horrific life event and trauma. You also have raised a daughter who doesn't even want to capitalize on it and write about it for her college essay. And it's so fascinating to me because one, I completely and totally agree with you, but then also it does go against all things hustle culture. And I mean, I've gone to plenty of writing conferences, and I know you're in similar circles where people are like, monetize your story, do this, do that. And you're still
Yeah, it's
just,
interesting because I mean, I did share my story because I don't have a huge audience, but they're somewhat engaged and I recognize names and I'm sure it's the same for you. And you go, oh, this person, seems to really like this or whatever it is. So to not share it,
would seem
uh,
inauthentic.
right, that would be
Yeah.
weird to say this huge thing happened to me. So I think when I did share it, it was like, hey, I might be quiet for a while, or um, just hey, this thing happened, so I'm just letting you guys know, and I will be okay. And I think I did put here's ways to support me if you want, and because that's
Yes.
also something um that I think made an impression on my husband, and that just I don't know if it's just being a woman or a mom that has helped other people. People want to help. People really like when something happens, good or bad, you want to, feel like you can. We all want to help make things better, and we can't. So little things, because my husband was like, "No, we don't need meals." I said, "Honey, this is a way for
Well, and,
people."
and and it's for people to feel good, like they're
Yeah,
somehow making a difference. Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. So
So,
so actually that's really funny. I think we should plug your freezer meals.
oh, yes,
We can provide a link because let's think about that. One, nobody wants this to happen. But two, you've raised a family and you've got a wonderful husband who can certainly follow a recipe, and you actually are a huge proponent of freezer meals.
yes. So the Freezer Meal Club that I did my course and wrote my ebook about, one of the components is that every time we got together, we did a whole extra set of freezer meals. So somebody had a baby, and we would all just talk about who should get these meals. And sometimes they all went to one family. So, here's a family, they had their fourth kid, let's give them all the freezer meals. Or this person's grandma just had to go through some kind of treatment, um, lives alone, let's give her just a few, or she's going to be overwhelmed. And somebody will take them these freezer meals, and now they have meals. Usually they're dumped in a crock pot, perfect for the crock pot. Meals that are really easy, but they can do them on their own time, right? Because it's not like I have 5 meals in my fridge that are fresh that something's going to go bad. Um, and we had done this before in my group when something happened unexpectedly. So usually we set a time in advance to meet, and then we tell that person we're going to bring you some meals. Um, but we have had times, including the bus crash, where something unexpectedly happens, and then the group is so skilled at what they do that
Mhm.
they can just mobilize, okay, this person needs meals, and then they just bring you over this set of meals. So we definitely had that, and that was definitely appreciated. And at the time, I can't remember what the timing was. In my memory, maybe we were going to meet soon. Maybe I had meals in my freezer already. I don't remember. But then we had a full freezer full of meals, and then we also had people bringing stuff, um, regularly. But the Freezer Meal Club was, uh, again, easily able to just get
Yeah.
together and bring those. And it's a great way to contribute, like, 'cause you directly contribute to your community without any red tape or bureaucracy or, where's the money actually going or how is this person being helped? you just take those meals and they are helping immediately. So yes, I thank you for bringing that up. That was a big part of it.
It was. It was. I wanted to ask you, and it's okay to say no to me. Um, Sometimes when bad things happen, people look back on it with kind of like rose-colored glasses and say, like, well, actually, this ended up being a really good thing for me. Or if this hadn't happened, then this wouldn't have happened. Do you have any of those sort of thoughts or not at all?
Um, yes, mostly in ways that are about how um the friendships I formed. Like I was already, friends with the people that I was on this trip with. But this happening has just kind of made us like friends and supporters for life. Like if they ever need anything, if I ever need anything, they're gonna be there, you know, immediately. Um, and some of the families have moved away um, for work or whatever, and I'm still in touch with them. And we just really, I mean, if anybody needs prayers for anything, if anybody is going through anything, I know they're gonna do whatever they can to help.
Yeah.
So that is, um, I guess, the best thing, I
Yeah.
think, if you want to put it that way. Can I say I'm glad it happened? I don't know if I can say that. And again, mostly because I think my kids have really struggled in a lot of ways with
Yeah.
coming to terms with things. And I don't know that they think about it every day and are pondering anymore or anything like that. But I will say I am really grateful for the friendships.
Yeah. I would think that makes a whole bunch of sense. And I'm glad that earlier you used that term kind of trauma bond with your group of friends. And I think also when you're looking at it from a relationship standpoint, and I know you've gone through my Simple Shortcuts to Peace course, and you did actually endorse it. So thank you for that. We recently had a relationship call, and we had talked about friendships and pockets of friends and groupings of friends, and politics came up because unfortunately
Mm-hmm.
politics comes up an awful lot. And um and the main takeaway is you can be friends with people. You can be friends with lots and lots and lots of people and not necessarily agree with them in all aspects of life. But when you take the time to focus on what you have in common, and that there's humans in there, actual humans that you have something in common with, that's what is kind of the marker of a great friendship and a really solid relationship. And so you'll see this obviously if you go through, God forbid, some sort of tragedy like Amylee has. But then also maybe you're at a writing conference and you're all doing the same thing for 3 days, and it's not a trauma bond, but it's a something in common bond. Same thing like the people you went to college with, or different pockets of friends. Obviously you grow and evolve in different ways, but you still have something that links you, and you still can focus on that kind of common bond and common commonalities. What's the word,
Yeah.
Emily? You
Yeah,
taught
sure.
English.
Yeah.
What's the word I
Yeah.
want?
Your similarities, your
Yes.
commonalities, like you
Yeah.
said. Yes. And I
So
think that
go.
we're losing that somewhat, right? Where people are so focused on they feel like um your value as a person and whether you're good or not is whether or not you agree on politics, right? So but I think you're absolutely right that something like what I have with this group of people is makes it so that I love them no matter what. And our politics are different, and like how we responded to COVID was really different, but our bond was strong enough that we can actually joke with each other about that. Where in ways that you can't necessarily do that. with other
Well,
people.
I'm pretty sure that is the definition of unconditional love,
Yes,
Amylee.
exactly. Yes, you are right. You are right. So it's, whatever's going on with you, and I might not agree with this or that, but I love you. And part of that is I value you because I almost lost you. And so maybe more people had that perspective, like, I need to value you because who knows how much
Who
time we have,
knows?
as sad as that is to think. We don't know when it comes to anybody. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so much juicy goodness. Amylee, thank you. Thank you for coming back and thank you for sharing. I'm going to link to your freezer meal guide. I'm going to link to your
Excellent.
Productive Mama website and then absolutely go back and listen to episode 148, where we talk about navigating the tween and teen years and how what you do on a daily basis, your kiddos are watching. So pay attention to that and model the behavior you're hoping that they emulate. Okay, pretty people, thank you again so much for being here. I think you are amazing. I think you are wonderful. I am proud of you, and I will talk to you again next week. Do you have a slow living story to share? Leave me a voicemail at stephanieodea.com/podcast with any questions, comments, feedback, or testimonials, and I will be sure to include it in an upcoming episode. Also, if you found value in this episode, please share it with your family and friends and subscribe through your favorite podcast provider. The more you share, comment, and leave positive reviews, the more people we can reach and share the slow living lifestyle and messaging. Thank you, Slow Down Society, and have an absolutely wonderful day.